How did I get so lucky tonight?
I know it isn't true.
Strange Darling is a 2024 horror thriller written and directed by J.T. Mulner. It stars Willa Fitzgerald, Kyle Gallner, and Barbara Hershey. Nothing is what it seems when a twisted one-night stand spirals into a serial killer's vicious murder spree.
So I'm gonna have to ask you a question. Are you a serial killer?
What did you just say?
This movie came out of nowhere. I didn't hear anyone talking about it. It's probably the least publicized horror movie that I've seen as far as ones that actually get to a theater. It's just wild to me, especially one that has a really solid cast with names you would recognize, a really up-and-coming director. It's well shot, all those things. You would think that it would have been more promoted than it has been. And so with that being said, I went into this completely blind, and I recommend everybody go see this as blind as you can. So if that means you stopping watching this video right now and coming back, maybe finishing it later, go ahead. I'm gonna do my best to not spoil anything, but even just seeing some of the visuals and things like that could somewhat take away from your experience of this. But with that being said, I'll get into why I think you should go see it and my opinions in general on it, my thoughts, just my feelings right out of the theater. So this movie absolutely blew me away. For one, it's shot on 35mm film. And a lot of times I get sick and tired of hearing the film snobs out there that are like, film is so much better than digital and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I'm not arguing. It's kind of like analog and digital as far as the music industry as well, which I'm even more familiar with. I get it. There is a difference in quality, but sometimes it feels like it's such a small amount that it isn't something that should be made quite as big of a deal out of as a lot of people make of it. But a film like this, you can see it, you can feel it. The difference the digital makes, the richness in the colors, man, the colors just leap off the screen. The blood, just the way it's shot, the color palette in general, the way they put this together, the visuals, everything leaps off the screen in this really profound way. If you're an artist, the best way I can describe it is an oil painting versus acrylic. You can get some amazing colors with acrylic. You can get a lot of the same tones, and you could get things that are almost look like oil with acrylics if you really know how to use them. But there's a depth, there's this richness, there's this fullness in the colors of oil versus acrylic, and that's what you see in this movie. Then the way this movie is cut, the editing, it is jarring. It's put together out of order, but it's done in a way that doesn't feel pretentious, but instead really adds to the suspense of this story, because you never quite know until you finally know exactly what's happening here. Because you see these things out of place, not in a confusing way, not in a hard to follow way, just in a kind of keeping you in the dark a little longer than a movie normally would. And it gets vicious. I mean, it really goes for it in moments. There's gore, there's violence. I mean, it's not like a gore fest or anything like that, but I mean, it doesn't hold back. When it does do violent things, you see it, you feel the impact of it. And then you can't talk about this movie without talking about the cast, because Willa Fitzgerald and Kyle Gallner are just incredible in this film. The roles that they play, the way they perform, it's so layered and convincing and believable. And there's numerous times where you are on one fence, you're thinking, okay, this is the direction it's going, and then it completely will flip on you, and a lot of that has to do with their performances. But Willa Fitzgerald especially, like, I've seen her in a few things. She was really good in the Netflix Mike Flanagan series, The Fall of the House of Usher. She was really good in that, but I was just amazed at the levels that she takes this role. The emotion, the intensity, the believability, like, you can really get inside this character. And a lot of it isn't even in the words that are said, but just the facial expressions everything, her mannerisms, it's really, really impressive. But this story, it's a simple one, but because of the way everything is put together, it feels rich and it feels layered and it feels, really impactful. By the end of this film, you feel like you've gone on this wild journey, this adventure, so to speak, through emotions and all these thoughts going through your head. It is completely and utterly on the edge of your seat intense, especially in the third act. And I won't say where it ranks yet as far as my favorite of the year, but I won't be surprised if it's fairly high on the list. After I really soak it in, maybe watch it a second time, I'll make that decision. But I was thoroughly entertained, really impressed. It's exactly what I love in an indie horror movie, especially if you go into it pretty much blind, because it just hits you like a ton of bricks. Just everything about this film felt really lived in and felt raw, but also very planned out, very structured. There's a lot of love, a lot of passion. There is a lot of creativity and just so much put into this movie. It was really cool because after the film was over, they did this live Q&A thing with a couple members of the cast as well as the director. And like I said, you could just see his passion for what he was trying to do here. And it might come off a little pretentious to some people because he has that artist kind of, that artist way of looking at things where it may be not quite as deep as he sees it, things like that. But I do recommend, after you see this, going and trying to track down any video with him talking about it, because it gives you a nice context and just kind of a different way of looking at what you just saw. But don't go do that first, because it'll definitely spoil a lot of what happens in this movie. So it's really hard to get into exactly the nuts and bolts of what this movie is about or what happens in it, and it's because there are a lot of twists and turns, a lot of things that happen that come kind of out of left field a little bit, and if you don't have that impact, this movie is far less interesting. But the score is great, the cinematography is fantastic, the shot selections, I mean, just the way this movie looks. It was shot up in Oregon, and the B-roll, everything just feels really rich. Like I said, the coloring, just, I really enjoyed this movie. I'm sure you could tell, but I had a great time with it. I was really impressed. But once again, Willa Fitzgerald, man, holy shit. She is someone to keep an eye out for, because she goes balls to the wall, 1,000 miles an hour, Mia Goth level of intensity in this film. But it gets savage, it's exciting, it's intense, it's thrilling. It definitely is a good time, and one that I highly recommend. So if you get a chance to get out to a theater and see this, I highly recommend that. Either way, just try not to get anything about this movie spoiled before you see it at some point, because it'll, like I said, it'll really take away from your experience. But now I gotta go check out Alien Romulus. I'm super excited. So hopefully after you watch this review, I'll have another review tomorrow or however I put these out. But this weekend, there should be an Alien Romulus review as well. But I want to give a huge, massive, enormous thank you to the Ghost Pirate crew, to you guys over on Patreon, and to the channel members over here. You guys mean so much to me. And if you would like to find out how you can help support this channel over on Patreon, there's a link down in the description. Or you can become a channel member and help support the channel that way by clicking on the join button down there. But like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button. And remember, guys, horror can be fun. And if you enjoyed this, click right here to watch me talk about Cuckoo. And I'll see you guys next time.